Good evening and welcome to ELOSOFUMARTAKES. This is our 177th take, live from the Alec Bradley Lone Star studio of Euless, Texas. I'm your host, Barry Duplessis, as always, and I'm so proud, so pleased, and so privileged to be with you all tonight. This is going to be a fantastic show, a wonderful show, a fourth time's a charm type of charm, and I am pleased to have this show and bring this to you for a fourth year in a row. It is absolutely one of my favorites. But before to get to formal introductions, we do have to thank the people that make this show possible. And that, of course, is our sponsors. Tonight's show is sponsored by Drew Estate. This year marks the 25th anniversary of Drew Estate and the rebirth of cigars movement. To celebrate this momentous occasion, the company is inviting you, yes, you, the consumer, retailer, and cigar media alike, to its epic blowout birthday bash entitled DE25. DE25 will be held on September 25th at South Fork Ranch in Parker, Texas. Yep, that's not too far from where I'm sitting right now. In the Dallas-Fort Worth metropolitan area, the DE25 celebration will include the unveiling of Drew Estate's newest brands with a first-to-experience approach for consumers and trade partners alike. Buy your tickets today at drewestate.com/DE25. That's drewestate.com/DE25. And welcome, everyone. This is our 177th take. So pleased to welcome back for our fourth visit down a tasting bud lane. Yes, Mr. Klaas Kelner of Kelner Tabak. Klaas, how are we doing tonight?
Thank you for having me, Bear. I love how you said lane of taste buds. You know, we're one of the few people that talk in those terms about tasting buds, palate, and it's a pleasure to be back again. Every time July, actually, I think we're still in July, so we are doing it every year, fourth time in a row, and I'm excited. I remember you wrote to me last month, and you're like, "Are we gonna do it?" And of course, how would I miss it? You know,
it's that time.
It's one of those rituals. It's that time of year, but there's a ritual now. It cannot be missed. So I'm very, very happy to be back.
Oh, I'm pleased that you're back as well. And this is a fun exercise that this will be our fourth one of doing it. And we've kind of taken a different approach each and every time. The first time we did it, we were celebrating Davidoff's 50th anniversary. And then we took a trip down three different avenues. We went through the Elements series. Mm-hmm. And then last year we had a little bit of fun, with Winston Churchill's birthday, and we smoked a couple of Churchill's, the late hour, and of course the Winston Churchill, the original release. And then this year I'm really excited about. Jay's already asking about what we're smoking tonight. I'm really excited about what we're going to be doing tonight, because this cigar really hit the market with your limited editions, or Davidoff's limited editions, are always something that are really highly coveted, obviously. But there was some fire behind this one, and we're smoking the Dominicana tonight. So I'm really excited about this.
Yep. I mean, the Dominicana is something I'm very excited as well. And it's impressive. I mean, you can tell the audience how hard it was to get you one.
It was insanely hard. So, we decided that we were going to do this, and and Davidoff was kind enough to dig up some and get me some, but it was not without trial and tribulation. My local white label account and a couple of other white labels in the area had sold out of theirs. I looked for a few other places. I had put into some calls to some Davidoff collectors that I know. I was striking out big time. And luckily our friends at Davidoff were able to dig up some and send some my way. So I'm super excited. They came in time.
There. And the thing is, when we checked the inventory at Davidoff USA, there was not left at that moment.
Oh gosh.
So we actually had to steal some cigars from somebody's humidor in the office. And we will replace them, but they had to give up their cigars for a couple extra weeks until the next shipment arrives. So we went above and beyond to see if we could get you these cigars. But it's been a tremendous success. It's the Davidoff Dominicana. It's, as you said, it's a limited, let's call it release. It's not really a limited edition because it's not being treated as one. It's actually almost like a limited release line. It's a full line that comes in three shapes: in a short
Mhm.
robusto, a robusto, which is the one we're enjoying tonight, and then also a toro. And the idea is it's going to last more or less 2 years, but in total for the three shapes, they made 350,000.
Okay.
Uh, yeah. So, I mean, if you know Davidoff limited editions that hit the market, it's normally about 60,000, 80,000 when it's a lot, globally. And I mean, you can do the math. 350 is more along the lines of that for 2 years. But it's been a tremendous hit, and they're flying off the shelves in unexpected ways. And we can also talk about how Davidoff and the other companies in the industry have definitely benefited from the stay-at-home uh, uh, a cigar aficionado craze, where
Mhm.
everybody's just seems to be enjoying more cigars, and there's a surplus of demand. And it's very interesting. We did not expect this, and it's very heartwarming to see a lot of people either uh, expanding on their cigar aficionado lifestyle, or new people coming in. There's a lot of new people that are coming in lately, especially with more time at home.
It's, that's what I was hearing a lot of, Klaas, and it sounds like you just confirmed it for your experience as well. That this just people were smoking a ton this year. There were more cigars being consumed, more people had time on their hands,
Mhm.
and so it allowed for people to do to really kind of explore what we're going to be doing tonight. Their taste buds and everything, and
Mhm.
kind of really be able to smoke a lot more cigars than they were probably used to or planning on.
Yeah,
And
they're calling it a mini boom. I mean, I don't know if it's gonna last as long as the '90s, but it's definitely a mini boom, and it's exciting for the factories. It's exciting for the different brands, and it's exciting for this one. Sometimes you release a cigar and it just lands on the wrong time. It doesn't do so well. We have had experiences with that, like launching cigars around the 2009, 2010, which is kind of like a puro de oro story. And Davidoff Dominicana deserves, especially for I'm very close to that name, of course, being Dominican and always promoting Dominican Republic. But Davidoff Dominicana deserves a stage to shine. This mini boom is definitely a stage, and a lot of people were asking when this would come, or they didn't know what was coming. But for the last, I don't know, 5 years, people have been asking for something like this, and Davidoff finally delivers.
we're certainly going to dive into it, like we've done in years past here, and I'm really excited to kind of pick this apart, talk about a lot of the different components of it. Um, but in addition to ruining one of your colleagues' smoking, for the next couple of weeks until they're able to get their allotment again. I also ruined Father's Day, apparently. So by having you on the show tonight, so I am doubly gracious for your time tonight, Klaas. I know that Sunday is always family time, but in the case of July 25th, for this year. This is Father's Day, a late Father's Day
In Dominican
celebration
Republic.
in the
In
Dominican
Dominican
Republic.
Republic. Yeah, it's Father's Day in Dominican Republic. So I normally celebrate it twice. The US Father's Day, but for us, it's the Dominican Republic Father's Day is the important one. So yeah, it's not a typical Sunday. Let's call it. The whole family's here, and they have definitely uh, allowed me to do this and spend some time with you. Thanks for stealing me away. It's it's a good break from the family.
Fair enough.
But
Fair
it
enough.
is
Fair
my
enough.
but it is my first Father's Day, so I'm actually quite excited. It's my first Father's Day as a father, so very good Sunday.
That's I was just about to say that it's so it was really cool. When my firstborn was born. So my wife made a pretty cool deal out of the fact that he was born in July, so he was born in America. The Father's Day is in June, so a
It
month
already
before he was
passed.
born, my wife made a really big deal out of the fact that I was going to be a father and stuff like that. But nothing can, and that was really great, and that was really cool, but nothing compared to that first Father's Day. A year after that.
So
That
I'll
was
tell you
fantastic.
something that will probably put a smile on your face. We all think everybody's saying, I have a daughter, so the daughter is the father's. She's more attached to the father. They always say that, and everybody's been telling me for the last couple months, her first word is going to be papa, papa, and then she's going to say papa, papi, and you're going to love it, and she's going to say the first word papa because the daughter always loves the father more. And my first trip out of the country, my first trip away from my daughter was PCA. So about 2 weeks ago. And while I was gone in PCA, I think to spite me, my daughter's first words were mama.
Oh.
And I was pretty disappointed in PCA in Vegas, and I missed her first word.
Right.
And as of 2 days ago, she started saying the "p" sound.
Okay.
And then today, on Father's Day, she said one time, "Papa."
Oh.
And
yes.
I just melted. It's like, thank you. It doesn't matter. You said "mama" while I was in PCA.
Yeah. I missed it.
I miss mama. Who cares? You said "papa" on Father's Day, and I just melted. And I was, okay, yes, it feels good to be a dad.
You didn't miss it. That's the most important thing. Oh, and that's perfect. Having that on Father's, we had our Father's Day episode here a few weeks ago, and that was a lot of fun and stuff. But maybe we have you on a little bit next year. I don't know. I like this tradition, but it doesn't mean we can't do both too. I don't know.
It doesn't mean
Get the gears working. So, it's like 100 and something degrees still here, even with the sun down here in Texas. So I'm drinking water, but I saw that you are partaking in a wonderful spirit there. What did you pour for yourself?
Davidoff recommends that you enjoy Davidoff Dominicana with Dominican rum, obviously, but I decided to go a little bit outside the box, and I think last month I was gifted this, and I've really enjoyed it, and I wanted to try it today with Davidoff Dominicana. This is Macallan Quest.
Okay.
And I think the name is very appropriate for Dominicana. Always the quest to. We always had the quest or the idea to make a cigar with Dominican tobaccos, Dominican wrapper, kind of really follows the Puro de Oro, the Yamasa story, and now Davidoff Dominicana. Really hitting home in Dominican Republic. For me, it almost feels like appropriate just because of the name. And I think it's doing very well. We'll analyze the cigar in just a bit, but I think it does very, very well with this. It's very smooth. I really like this whiskey. I've really enjoyed it. I mean, you can see already halfway down. So
did you let your father have any of that, or was that all for you?
No, yeah, definitely my father gets to try. It's he has first dibs at everything I own.
Fair enough.
Put it that way.
Fair enough. He's got to just make sure it's not poison. That's what my dad always says when he.
Yeah, he's quality control. He's protecting me.
Yeah. I mean, we know that he's excellent at that. So I mean, of course, why wouldn't that drift off into his personal life too? So I know he's all business all the time. But we're going to be breaking down this cigar here in just a couple of minutes here. So actually, let's go ahead and let's talk a little bit more about just the story behind it as we kind of are going into the first third, and then we'll talk about our first third experience here. So the you talked about the different formats that it comes in and the limited quantity that y'all are doing it in, but I'm interested to hear a little bit more about the project itself. Yamasa, what a few years ago was kind of the Davidoff's just to be a little overdramatic, Dominican triumph. Being able to harness this valley that had given fits for years and everything, and you guys were able to procure and make such grow such incredible tobacco there, and that ultimately gave us a truly unique blend, and of course San Vicente and Piloto Cubano and other Herald leaves from your farms have always been at the centerpiece of a lot of Davidoff blends, most Davidoff blends. So what was it about this project in particular that Davidoff wanted to, from your understanding, that Davidoff wanted to accomplish with this?
Well, let me just make it clear. You know, as everybody is watching, currently I have a consultancy agreement with Davidoff. So I'm an external marketing consultant for them. So I'm not employed by Davidoff, I'm outside, but my family still grows tobacco for Davidoff. Right. And this cigar does have some tobacco from my family farms in there. Of course, including Yamasa, and then also the Hikome farm that you know, that you've been to.
Yes.
If I had the pleasure of working at the initial stages with this cigar before I left Davidoff, back when I was in the United States. And definitely, I'm very happy this project happened, because when I was brand ambassador for Davidoff in the last couple of years, and when I traveled, I kid you not, I would do my events, and then at the end of the events, you normally open it up for questions. And in the last couple of years, almost without fail, on almost every single event, the question I got was, what about Puro de Oro? What about Puro de Oro? Where is Puro de Oro? I'm a fan of Puro de Oro. There's always one fan in every store, right? You know, and like diehard fans, like, who would kill to grab one. I might be one of those, especially the Notables or the Delicioso formats. If you have one, let me know. I will show up at your house. But
maybe in the middle of the night.
Maybe in the middle of the night. But I remember some years ago, the Davidoff, especially people in headquarters, were like hinting at that we were going to not redo something, but do something in the honor of Puro de Oro, because there's always been this fan club. And you can call Davidoff Dominicana in many ways, from my point of view, almost like a tribute to Puro de Oro. Now, this is not Puro de Oro. Let me make that clear. But it is the same intentions, or very similar intentions. Puro de Oro back in 2010, when it was launched, it was 100% Dominican. And then this one is pretty close to 100% Dominican. Everything but the binder, which is an Ecuadorian binder, but everything else is Dominican. And I think is really going back to not just satisfy people that have this, were fans of the Puro de Oro, but it's really to talk about Dominican Republic, try to express the Dominican vibrant culture, you know, the merengue, the colors, the liveliness of the people, through a cigar that is, in my opinion, pretty complex and has quite a variety of tobaccos. We're talking about 7 tobaccos, 5 in the filler, 1 in the binder, 1 in the wrapper. And I think it does it justice. It is definitely, you will see, it's definitely more into the medium to full side. So it is not just medium, there's more going on into it. And what I do like is that in contrast to Yamasa uses Nicaraguan tobacco, and Davidoff Yamasa, the Nicaraguan tobacco, does play a very important role in the blend. Where I think here you don't have that competing aspect of another country, because the Ecuador is really just there for a nice component in the middle that will add some flavor, but it's not competing against or adding a new dimension. I think it's just flowing with what the Dominican tobaccos are giving. But I remember I would have to tell people, just wait. Something is coming. Something is coming. And then when they asked me if it's going to be Puro de Oro, I was like, it's not going to be Puro de Oro. And the reason is because Puro de Oro, back when it was launched back in 2010, the farm of Yamasa was actually 100% sun grown. Now Yamasa farm is 100% shade grown. So right. There's no way you're going to get that wrapper. This is silky smooth wrapper right now. You know, this is silky smooth. That's because of the shade. This is after years and years of improving on the farm, making sure that the combustion is right. If you're a fan of Puro de Oro, back in the day, you'll know that Puro de Oro would have a lot of burn issues because it was so oily, so granular. and it contributed a lot to the taste. So it was almost a characteristic of the cigar. You will not experience this burning issues with the Davidoff Dominicana. I think this is almost like a perfected version of it, a much more nuanced and much more balanced version of the Puro de Oro.
So before we go kind of diving into our first kind of tastes, tasting of the first third and everything, it's something you said just a minute ago, Klaas, kind of took me down memory lane a little bit. Not of Puro de Oro necessarily. I had never actually had the good fortune. Everyone just talks about it. It's like that word unicorn gets thrown around so much in this industry. That truly is a unicorn, because that's the one that I'll probably never catch, right? So and
you never know.
It was never, it was missed by, but yeah, everyone has such reverence for it. But something that took a moment ago when you said about originally when it first came out, the oiliness, it kind of infringed a little bit with the burn, just because of like you said, the oiliness and everything. That took me back to us a couple of years ago when we did the Element series, and we noticed the difference between. We were commenting on the difference between the combustion rate, not that it was poor, but the combustion rate of the Escurio compared to the Yamasa. So the Yamasa had that, it was much more flashy. It burned a lot. It burned not fast. It just burned faster, because that the oils in the Escurio really kind of made that smoke a lot slower. So I guess that was
it's a good example. It's a good comparison. I think this one does have some Visus higher up in the plant tobaccos, but there is also some Seco tobaccos in this cigar. So I don't think this one is slow or fast. This one is as a good rate. But also the wrapper and that binder, that Ecuadorian binder, does help a lot in the burn ratio for this cigar. But I don't think that is you don't have to put that as one of the things that are differentiating about this cigar. I'm just really comparing it to the old school comparison to Puro de Oro. But we did want to make something that was completely different from Puro de Oro. But it is reverence to the idea of a cigar that is from the Dominican Republic, where it lets Dominican tobacco shine. Lately, Davidoff has been launching a lot of cigars that have blends with many different countries. And I like going back to our roots because Davidoff roots were Dominican tobaccos since the 90s. So almost all of 2000, just Dominican tobaccos with an Ecuadorian wrapper. In this case, it's an Ecuadorian binder. So this is almost also a glimpse into old school Davidoff. This is going back to tradition, I think. It's pretty nice.
Tradition in a still, but in a very unique way, because of some of the tobaccos that we're going to talk about here in just a minute. But I want to talk about just kind of the outwards appearance and everything. We talked about the oils. This in terms of color. Would you characterize this as a more like a? It's not colorado. It's not. There's not too much red to it, but it's not maduro, right? It's not too dark, but it's not. It's not your typical Davidoff.
I would call this almost like a legit brown. Yeah, it's just right down the middle brown. You might have I don't know what cigar you have, but Davidoff does do color sorting for every line. So every line does have a parameter of how light it can be and how dark it can be. And the one I have right now, which I don't know if you can see, but there's too much light. This is pretty standard brown. I would not call this light brown or dark brown or reddish brown, not a greenish brown either. What's something really cool about Davidoff is that they do sort into a plethora of colors, and you do get into the pink browns, the purplish browns, the light greens, the light yellows. Not all of those colors make it into Davidoff, but you will see little tones of that, and they sort into about 50 different colors, which is ridiculous. But this one is right down the middle. You won't get like a Maduro or a very light one. This is an Habano type hybrid being planted in Yamasa, the Dominican Republic.
Some of the darkest plants. Some of the darkest leaves obviously are probably like the late hour.
Yeah.
The millennium, it can get rather dark, which is interesting.
Yes. Millennium has a lot of this same tone, very similar tones, but Millennium can get a lot darker.
Yeah.
You're absolutely correct. I have seen almost like purplish browns in Millennium, which is unique.
Yeah, when you said deep purple, that reminded me of Millennium specifically. I still remember the first cigar that we smoked together. Well, we smoked different cigars, but it was when you were translating for your father in Eladio Diaz in that interview that Coop and I did in the Dominican Republic. You were smoking a Millennium,
Mm-hmm.
and
Wow, good memory.
I because I remember the darkness of it. I was like, oh, man, I don't remember the Millennium being that dark, and it made me crave the Millennium. I wanted to try it, so I wanted to smoke it right after that interview. So I went and found one.
But that's also the beauty of shade ground. So shade ground will make lighter tones, and it won't get into those darker tones. Millennium is in a Habano type grown in Ecuador, the 151 hybrid, which is, even though Ecuador has a natural shade from the clouds, it is still kind of sun grown. Especially for Habano, you can get those darker colors in higher primings.
So Klaus, let's talk a little bit about this the tasting notes we're getting in this first third. I'm kind of hitting the back end of the first third here.
Me too.
Really, like we talked about, good combustion, slower smoke. I'll talk about compared to another Davidoff I smoked earlier today, but in terms of something else. But from the flavor component, the first thing that I got off, and I was trying to, I always try to do this in these exercises every year with you because I'm a big retrohaler, as you recall. And I know we try to really focus on these tastings. We try to just focus on the taste, and so I try not to retrohale as much. But I get some really nice kind of almost baking spice.
Yeah.
You're not quite cinnamon, not quite nutmeg, not that sharp, but still
Mm-hmm.
that kind of cake,
Yep.
kind of cake spice to it, and a little bit of oak.
There is a little bit of wood at the beginning. I don't think that's the predominant note. The oak, I think more the spices, and then there's definitely, I think, some sweet notes that will definitely. I think the spices and the oak will become more pronounced as you go into the second and the third. But I think the sweet and the spice of this cigar, I think, are the main players in the beginning of the cigar. That's personal for me, but you're absolutely right with the spices. It's not that pronounced. It's very, very typical Yamasa spice, which is very front of the palate, like right behind the tip of your tongue. It's about half an inch behind the front of your tongue, and that's very typical, that frontal stimulation. But this tobacco doesn't just have Yamasa, obviously. The wrapper, there's some in the filler, but it does have two Habano types inside, which are a Piloto and a Corojo 1999. So you're going to get a lot of those wooden notes definitely being pronounced or showing up little by little as you continue the cigar. But it has to be there from the beginning, because if not, the cigar is not balanced. So you're absolutely right. There's definitely wooden notes right there.
So we mentioned, and we're going to again break down the full component of the tobaccos here in just a few minutes. But you mentioned the Yamasa, and like I said, one of the differences I've noticed right off the bat is, again, the slower burn. Not quite as slow as the Escurio that we smoked a couple years back, but also the minerality that Yamasa gives off, the blend, the Yamasa, not the tobacco. Well, maybe the tobacco, but it's not. It's that's kind of absent from this as well. There's just a little bit more sweetness to it. I'm really excited to see how this continues to build, because I feel like the cigar's just getting warmed up. What's your experience been like? Is it a cigar that kind of captivates you and holds you, or is it a cigar that captivates you and then even builds even further?
For me, I've had the pleasure of enjoying the cigar quite a bit. But for me, I think this is a cigar that is, even though it's very flavorful and I do consider it above medium in intensity, I think this is a cigar that doesn't overpower me the whole way through. It's very, very balanced, but it does build on top as it progresses, and it does get a little bit more intense as it progresses. But it is very balanced, and it's very, you could say smooth. That might be the word, and it lacks that the minerality that you are saying, and you're probably getting that in the Yamasa from the Esteli, the Condega, the Nicaraguan tobaccos. There's definitely some mineral component that's coming from that in those cigars, where this one is completely lacking that Nicaraguan profile.
Sure.
So Dominican tobaccos in general are known for being more subdued and more nuanced. They're not as, I don't want to say it like this, but maybe, and they're not as much as in your face. Like you actually have to almost like sit down and think. There are definitely some varieties in some regions in the Dominican Republic that are boom in your face. And there are some blenders and some brands out there that do very well by captivating those notes. But in general, the Dominican Republic has a lot of softer soils. Doesn't have that volcanic soil like in Nicaragua. So it is easier to do more nuanced notes with Dominican tobaccos. And I think this is where this shines. It's very balanced and very smooth the whole way through.
I've been smoking a lot of the Discovery series lately. I've been smoking a lot of more Yamasa, Nicaraguan, the Corona Gorda Escurio, which is one of my favorites. My favorite size in that blend.
It used to be the short Robusto, and then the Corona Gorda. Yeah, and then the Corona Gorda appeared. I was like, yep. I no longer have to satisfy for a 20-minute smoke. Now I can do a 40-minute smoke.
Well, what was interesting about that exercise that we did a couple years ago, because we did the shortest versions of all three blends, the Nicaraguan, the Yamasa, and the Escurio. And I remember us both talking about how, like, I'm a big Vitola snob. I've always said that, but like we each love that blend in those sizes. We liked other sizes as well, but we agreed that those three were really great executions of those particular blends, which was unique, because I think a lot of times, it's those short cigars that sometimes it's those what you call those connoisseur Vitolas.
They call them dog walkers.
Yeah, that gets overshadowed and overlooked sometimes. Yeah, they're perfect for that. Perfect for that amount of time, for sure. But the interesting thing I was noting about this, so to bring about my point, though, I've been smoking a lot of Discovery series. This morning I smoked another one of my favorites of one of the classic whites. I smoked my Robusto by a Grand Cru, which is one of my favorites as well. And just it's virtually the same components, same length, virtually same length and same ring gauge, but the weight from this morning cigar is completely different. It goes back to all the tobaccos that are in this particular cigar, so it's a denser smoke for sure. Altogether,
yeah. Grand Cru. What's interesting? The Grand Cru line has a tobacco that this one doesn't have. It's. I was talking about it the other day with somebody. The traditional Dominican Davidoff blend for the white label cigars, and this is part of the white label, as you can see.
Right.
It's not part of the Discovery series or the Tasty Element series. It's part of the white label. Is that the white label normally is focused around three tobaccos: Piloto, which this one has; San Vicente, which this one has; and Olor Dominicano, which is the traditional Dominican tobacco, but this one doesn't have it. And what's interesting is they asked me, like, why does it not have Olor Dominicano? It is Olor Dominicano, even in the name, it would make sense to put it into Davidoff Dominicana. And what's interesting is that Olor Dominicano gives you that salty and almost going into this a little spicy, very light spice kind of feeling. And if you put Olor Dominicano and then on top of that you put Yamasa, and this cigar has Yamasa twice, it almost becomes too salty, and that's why you don't need it. Yamasa is almost like a perfect substitute for Olor Dominicano when it comes to blending. And it's almost more noble. It's a little bit less mineral than the Olor Dominicano.
Yeah, I remember that from some of our tastings about the Olor being really salty, and I agree with that too. So I mean, let's go ahead and dive into the components of this blend. We've kind of danced around it a little bit tonight. So the wrapper is Dominican Republic. It's a hybrid 257.
Yeah.
And these numbers, like the 702 series line and some of the other cigars that, some of the limited releases and everything have these numbers attached to it. I know you've talked about that before, but just give a quick review of what these numbers represent, if you would, for our audience tonight.
Yeah, they basically, each one of these numbers represents a different variety, a different seed that Davidoff has created. They have hybridized using Mendel theory, normal seed crossings in the greenhouse. It takes about 8 years to develop a seed and make it not only male sterile, but the flavor and the genetic capacity to resist certain diseases or have a certain flavor or have a certain yield. So it takes about 8 years to create one of these seeds. So when you hear the number 257, you can imagine how many seeds Davidoff has created over the years. Not every single one of them gets used. Obviously, imagine back when they were planting wrapper in the late 90s. Davidoff was planting wrapper in the late 90s, Davadom. The seeds counts were like at 119. 133 was a very famous one for Puro de Oro. 702 has been very, very famous. That was released in 2009, even though that count is for Ecuador, not for Dominican Republic. And also this, we're talking about the wrapper right now, but this also has a binder that is the hybrid 151 from Ecuador. And that one was famously used, or is famously used, in Millennium line, in the Millennium blend. So you see all these numbers, and that's a different seed or a different variety based on different, you could say, mother seeds that are being used. This is one in particular is based on an Habano.
Okay. The so the wrapper hybrid 257, which we said was a Habano foundation. Mother seed.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Foundation is fine.
So, and then the Ecuador hybrid 151 also mother seed of Habano, or different?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Actually, two separate mother seeds, but yeah.
Okay. And as we were talking about the binder earlier, you said that it does impart some flavor. The reason it was selected for this blend, because I know where the meat of this blend is in the careful selection of the fillers, which we'll go into in a little bit, and then the wrapper. So the hybrid kind of is more of that complementary piece, combustion. It makes the whole blend go. Were you aware of any, because you said you, at the time when you were with Davidoff, you played a little bit of a part in this, the making of this blend. Was the original intent to try and make this another Dominican Puro, and it just wasn't working with what you guys were trying out? Or was it always, were you just putting the pieces of the puzzle together?
I think it was a little bit of both. There was definitely intent to try to create 100% Puro. For many different reasons, which I can't really go into. It was decided to pick this blend. And you do know that when Davidoff picks a blend, it's not just like a master blender down in the Dominican Republic picking out the blend. This goes through many tasting panels, blind tastings. It gets sent out to different people in the company, some consumers even sometimes. So I can assure you probably that one of the big decisions why this blend was chosen was probably because it was the preferred one. And the combustion does have a lot of help with the Ecuador. Well, it would be interesting. I think they could have also made a cigar that was 100% Dominican. It would have been fine. But when you make so many test blends, sometimes there's just a winner. And I guess this one was the clear winner.
There you go. Yeah, I was gonna say if you keep,
Mhm.
if you keep going, if everyone keeps going back to this one, it's kind of hard to ignore the masses at that point.
Something I've learned, it's very interesting. I still do it, and you should do it. If you give out different cigars, and you hand them all out, and then at the end of the night, you see the ashtrays, look for the cigars that were smoked to the very end and which ones were left halfway or not finished. And that one will tell you which one was the favorite one. Forget about all the tasting notes and everybody's personal opinions and the opinions of everybody as they bounce around. Just look at the ashtrays at the end of the day.
There you go.
And see which one was the one that was enjoyed the most. And that's normally the clear winner. You don't even have to look at people's notes or take into account. You will know just by which one they go back to. And that happens to me all the time. They give me 3 cigars, I line them up side by side, and then just naturally, without even thinking about it, I just lean towards one. And it's because it's the one I'm enjoying the most at that particular moment.
I'm chuckling because that is reminiscent of a couple weeks ago at PCA. On the way out, you always see the ashtrays, and there's some that are, like you said, that are barely smoked. There's some that are smoked all the way to the nub, and and unfortunately, leaving the trade show, you have to put them out. So that certainly factors
that doesn't
into
count.
it.
Yeah, that doesn't count.
But there was a cigar that was barely smoked, and it was in the ashtray, and I was like, I really want to meet this person so that I can take all of their allotment of that, and that way none more get wasted.
And come on, respect. At least take off the band. Don't let people know what brand you didn't finish. At least take off the band.
It was a very surprising band, Klaas. I got to tell you, it was. I mean, it wasn't yours. I would have said it if it was y'all's. But I was just unbelievably shocked that much cigar on that particular brand had just been left, and I was like, I want to meet this person and just see if I can just buy the rest of theirs, because apparently they don't like them. So, but it was very, very shocking. But to kind of go, so to get into again, what we're talking about, the meat of this particular blend, the very careful selection of the filler leaves in this cigar. This is a very, very, very meticulously and well balanced in terms of different types of tobaccos that you guys selected for that Davidoff selected for the fillers here. We've got 2 types of San Vicente.
Yep.
There's San Vicente Visus and the Mejorado Seco.
Yep.
The Piloto Visus, and the 2 ones that are in my mind the most unique, the Yamasa Visus and the Corojo 99 Seco, all from the Dominican. Corojo 99 or Dominican Corojo is not something you see a lot in Davidoff product. Am I misremembering, or?
No, you're correct.
Okay.
It's I don't think it's something new. It's not something new, but
right.
It does stick out when you're looking at all the other lines. It is something I don't think it's in any of the other normal traditional lines that are available.
Because, like you said, okay, go ahead. I'm sorry.
Yeah,
please.
No, go. Go.
Well, I was going to say, like you already touched on the one noted absence when you look at the blend. You're like, oh, San Vicente, Piloto, and you're like, oh, where's the Allure? And like you said, it was replaced in terms of the balance with the Yamasa. But the Corojo 99 definitely jumped out at me. When you smoke Corojo 99, apart from this blend, we'll go back to the blend here in a second, but apart from it, what are some of the things that we talk about the palate? What does Corojo bring to a blend in terms of like the sweetness, acidity, the spice? What does it typically impart on a blend?
Well, Corojo is an Habano base. It's from the Habano lineage, and in particular, 99 was a particular good year that the seed was picked out. for a lot of different characteristics. Also, mainly because it had amazing yield. But Corojo has been widely used in other brands in other countries, and I do find it interesting how Davidoff puts Dominican Corojo 99 to make it clear that this Corojo 99 is from Dominican Republic, because there's a lot of Corojos from other countries. And something that you'll notice from Corojo being a Habano base is very much like Piloto, has that very linear taste, which is sweet and then hits it home in the back. But it is less linear and it's more rounded. Corojo actually has more ability to stimulate more areas, a little bit more rounded, less sharp, it's less precise than the Piloto. So if you compare, for example, to the Yamasa, Davidoff Yamasa has Piloto and then Esteli that do that action of sweet and bitter. Where in this one, that action is being done by the Piloto, but now instead of a Esteli, it's done by a Corojo 99.
Mm-hmm.
And it is less intense than the Esteli, is more rounded, gives you a lot of that woodiness that you're looking for, or that you're probably tasting. But it's not as sharp. It's not as, I mean, some people say there's some oak wood, but it's not as charred, or it's not as strong, it's not as present. It's a little bit more balanced. And I think that's really the biggest part, because the sweetness, there's a lot of tobaccos in this cigar that are producing sweetness, mm-hmm. but there's really two big tobaccos here that are producing the intensity in the back. And that's your Corojo and your Piloto. And you needed at least two to be able to fight off or balance what was going on in the front.
So I think one of the most important distinctions too, when we're talking about this Corojo versus probably a more popular Corojo that's out there, are the Nicaraguan Corojo that you see, or the Honduran Corojo, right?
Yes.
So these are like, that's the Corojo 99, like you said, it's a very famous seed, and it's proven to be a very durable seed, because it's grown readily in the Dominican Republic. It's grown readily in Honduras, most famously probably in Honduras. And then it's also grown in Nicaragua, but they, like all three different countries, produce this leaf from this seed, and it's very different. Because like to me, when like you were just describing about the Dominican, my experience with it in while it provides the excellent balance in this particular blend, where I see it coming out of like Honduras, for example, it is a very dominant flavor. It's a very
also realize, but do realize that this Corojo 99 is a seco. It's from the bottom of the plant.
True.
So it is more nuanced. It's not as intense. So that's also why you're not perceiving a dominance coming from this tobacco. And it is, like you're saying, it is a very dominant seed because it is very durable. Farmers love it because it produces high yield. It's resistant to many diseases, being an Habano base. And then processors that ferment it and then sell it to other factories or smaller factories. They love it because it is durable when sorting. It doesn't break. It can support, or aguantar in Spanish, support high temperatures and fermentation. And it's a pretty easy tobacco to work with, and it's a flavor profile that a lot of people like. So it sells easy. It's good for the market. It's a very good tobacco for the market. But it's interesting because Davidoff hasn't really gone into it too much, because Davidoff has always focused so much on private seeds, creating their own tobaccos with the hybrids, with the San Vicente Mejorado, which is also a hybrid.
What is that? So yeah, that's the other one that caught my attention. Because when I just see San Vicente in Davidoff's blends, or just in general, I mean I've seen Mejorado a few times, but it's also one of the ones that kind of jumped out at me is in terms of rarity, other than Yamasa, because y'all pretty much hold the patent on that. But the Mejorado, is it also Habano mother seed as well, or is it different?
No, San Vicente is from Cuba, but even though it is like an Habano C, because it is from Cuba, it's completely different profile. Normally being more acidic is what's going to be producing. Now we're halfway into the cigar. It's going to be producing a lot of that creaminess feeling, that smoother feeling. And then Mejorado, it's a hybrid. It's one of the few hybrids that Davidoff did not put a number to. Just made, it says San Vicente made better. That's what it literally translates to. It has more sweet notes. It's a little bit more rounded. It's not as acidic, so it doesn't produce that kind of feeling, and it really produces a more rounded experience, and it produces a more sweeter experience while still providing that acidity that is very essential for creating creaminess and creating a nice moist palate.
So that actually, I wanted to actually go into this comment too. That's something about, you know, a lot of Davidoff cigars that kind of, like we talk about, that acidity that produces that saliva and everything. Mm-hmm. I have a very the palate is very refreshed with this cigar, mm-hmm. But it's not over salivating.
No,
there's not a lot of acidity to this cigar, and because I think that it's just the way that the blend, the tobaccos are marrying together to kind of create it to where it's not. Because sometimes, like for example, when I think about the acidity, where that stimulation of the saliva being produced, I think of the Signature series. Signature line. I kind of get like about a third away into the cigar, I get this burst of acidity, and this, we've gone over this 4 years in a row now. When we talk about acidity, like people like cringe because they're like, oh, acrid, that's terrible, that's bad. Mm-hmm. No, you need acidity to balance out the blend, but you kind of, in the mm-hmm. Signature line, for me, when I smoke it, I get this about a third of the way, and I get this surge of acidity that kind of really like sparks the palate and ignites it, like, and I get a lot of saliva built up after that, and it just kind of it makes the cigar more. It really does make the cigar more enjoyable because you get a lot more out of it the second and final third in that cigar, in my opinion. I don't know if you've had similar experience.
It's a cigar I enjoy quite a bit, but it's. I do have to say one thing I have completely forgotten to say up till now, and it's that not only is this a limited release because of the quantity, but it's also a limited release because of the year on some of these tobaccos. That third band on the bottom, which I have here,
Short Robusto.
Yeah, that
2014.
It says 2014. There's some tobaccos in here. They're up to 2014. That are from this year. And when we're talking about tobaccos that are aged for many, many years, what happens not only in fermentation, where it really happens a lot is in fermentation, but also with aging, it happens just at a slower rate, is that when you have a very prolonged aging, you know, the typical, your carbohydrates go down, your proteins go down, you know, the reduction in nicotine. But one thing that I always say, and I kind of glossed over real quick, but I always say this: when you have fermentation, one of the things that gets reduced, and when you have aging, is acidity. So it almost never gets touched up on. And actually, this might be the first time ever in an interview that I actually talk about this, I guess, to this depth. But reduction of acidity does happen with aged tobaccos, and it becomes less enjoyable, or it becomes more enjoyable, less acrid. Right. If you could say that. So this cigar is not only special by the composition of the tobaccos that it has because of the varieties, it's also special because this cigar has tobaccos that are very aged and above the medium of what Davidoff standards are, because Davidoff standards are normally 4 to 5 years aging.
Right.
So, and that's the medium. So sometimes the least you'll have in aging is 3 years, but this is 6 years and above for some tobaccos in this blend.
Well, that definitely lines up with the experience I was just talking about then, because if, you know, like you said, the acidity goes down as ages goes up, that makes sense considering the experience that we've had so far with it. I'd also like to point out something too, and this is an interesting question for y'all, for you, Klaas, and I know that, you know, we're going to get into your new role here in just a little bit, but, you know, when you were with Davidoff, you know, and Davidoff has done this for years, they've made a point in the Time Beautifully Filled, right? That's the moniker that's been a theme for decades. And with the time component, they always try to put a time on the cigar, like what should the smoking time be, or what's the average, or so that's the question. So for this cigar, they list this at 45 to 60 minutes, which I have to say we are really we're hitting up against that 60-minute mark here in just a couple of minutes here, and we're barely halfway through. So we're doubly filling our time beautifully here. If I could be just a little cute there for a second, but on those smoking times that get listed, is that an average? Is that something that's kind of like you talked about the tasting panel a little bit ago? Is that something that's kind of pulled with the tasting panel? Is it an average? Like what's that whole average time? What was your recollection of what that timing meant for smoking a Davidoff cigar?
Normally, this is personal opinion, but I really think that this is almost like the minimum. When I see 45 to 60, I always kind of giggle myself, or kind of laugh inside, because I always know it goes a little bit more. Imagine saying a cigar lasts 60 minutes and it always lasts you 45. Right. So you feel cheated, I think. But I've always thought to myself that I'm okay with these times because this is normally the minimum, and there's also normally the minimum, but it's also the average smoking time if you're like sitting down and just concentrating on the cigar. So normally when you're in these tasting panels, you're not talking. I mean, yes, you're talking back and forth, but you're really puff, take it down.
Like, yeah,
puff. You're constantly going at it. Right now, half of my time is spent talking to you.
Right.
It's not being focused on the cigars. So I'm definitely taking much more time, taking less puffs on the cigar as we're going through this interview. And it's something that I don't think I've ever heard somebody like review a cigar, whether it's you guys or another blogger, and say that it lasted exactly what Davidoff says. It always goes above. But it's interesting. I think it's normally the minimum, and it's a good average for normally that size. I think also that Davidoff has a lot of experience with lighter tobaccos that burn quicker, so they kind of have this standard for lighter cigars that just burn a lot quicker. This one has a lot of visus in it. It's going to burn a little slower.
Yeah, that's a fair point, because what I've always kind of seen those times, and I'm like, I definitely make them last a little bit longer, which, it's not like Davidoff's ever going to slap my wrist over that. They want me to enjoy their cigars. But the Robusto, like this is a little bit bigger than the quote unquote traditional Robusto size. This is 5 1/8 by 52. The 5 by 50 being the quote unquote traditional Robusto size. When I smoke a 5 by 50, typically it's for the most part, overall, again, like the tobaccos do definitely play a part in it, like we were talking about. I'm usually in for about 90 minutes. Yeah, easily. If again,
a traditional Robusto. Yep.
Yeah. So this
for me, Davidoff Special R, Davidoff Grand Cru Robusto, those two in particular, it's like 40 minutes in the mark for me always. So normally when I'm doing tastings or tours or things like that, I try to go for Toros or higher, because I know it's gonna last me the whole tour. Yeah, when you get into like the black label or like just stronger cigars, that's where I'm getting into hour 15. And that's normally my average for a Robusto. That's normally traditional 50 by 50, but this is a 52, so it will also burn a little slower.
So this going back a couple of years, when Davidoff did another unique thing with the Davidoff, I'm going off on another tangent here, Klaas. But when Davidoff Nicaraguan, they did and then the Escudo, they did 60s. They did 6 by 60s.
Yeah.
Did you? I'm sure you smoked at least a few of those. But like me, I think I know it's not a preferred size for you necessarily.
No.
But I have to say, again, not just because of the audience that I have right now, but I really enjoyed those particular blends in those formats. And I'm not normally a 60 gauge smoker, but what, like, since we're talking about smoking time, what did you see in those blends, particularly when the 6x60 was produced by Davidoff? Did you see a considerable slowing down because of the tobaccos involved, or did it pretty much, kind of, was there consistency there as you kind of went up in sizes?
It's considerable. I think it's very considerable, especially when you're getting into like the box press Nicaragua or the Yamasa, because now we're talking about the fillers. What really increased in amount is the fillers. The wrapper and the binder stayed the same, but it was maybe a tiny bit more because the shape is bigger. But the considerable increase in the blend was inside the fillers. So when you're getting into these ligero tobaccos that burn a lot slower, and not the percentages, but the quantity in the cigar went up, then you will see a considerable slowdown. But it's kind of like what you're saying. I did not really. I've tried some. I don't go back to them too much in those sizes because normally my comfort level ends at about 56. I do enjoy from time to time my 60, but my comfort level ends at about 56. Even though the market is always growing in size.
So to bring it back into this blend that we're smoking, like you said, we're approaching that last third now. We went through the second half here. Let's talk about some tasting notes. We mentioned that creaminess, that smoothness that's kind of come out. That the cigar is definitely has that cream component for me right now in the middle of the cigar. I get a little bit more two things that kind of crept into it, where those baking spices have now kind of morphed into a really more precise, rich sweetness. I'm getting a little bit of chocolatey kind of notes, a little more caramel for me. But on the flip side, in the contrast, I'm also getting some nice kind of more, the wood is still there, but it's kind of almost kind of become a leathery component. What do you kind of get out of this second third, other than the cream that we had mentioned a moment ago?
Leather is an interesting tasting note. Davidoff does have some some cigars that do have that tasting note. For me, leather is like I think of leather in my mind. What is leather? I mean, you're not really chewing ever leather, but I'm thinking about the aromas that leather do, and then also maybe what the mouthfeel of a leather would be. And it's almost like still smooth, still cream, but there's more richness to it. So sometimes I think of leather as it's just nice smoothness that is very rich in mouthfeel. And I do feel that it's not just cream, it's still smooth, but it's almost has a bigger residue on your palate. There's more residue on your tongue, and it just lasts longer in your palate. And that's what I think of leather. And the chocolatey components is really that melange in the back, that mix in the back of that's not oak wood, just oak wood. It's that second dimension of stimulation going in the back that is chocolatey. And you do feel some of that chocolatey going in there. And I wouldn't describe it as a dark chocolate, though. For me, maybe it's not milk chocolate, but it might be like, I don't know, 70%, cacao or something. It's somewhere in the middle. It's not super creamy in regards to milk chocolate, but it's a little bit more dense. But it's not bitter dark chocolate.
Right.
It's not like 90%. Let's put it that way.
Yeah, like I said, the bitterness, the like you said with the aged tobaccos, like we were talking about, that bitterness just is not there. That coffee that you sometimes get with bitterness.
I don't feel coffee in this cigar at all.
I know I don't.
Personally,
I don't either.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, no, it's much more of, and you're right, it's not a milk, even though we were just talking about cream a moment ago. It's not milk chocolate. It's not that overly cloyingly sweet chocolate. It has just that kind of just more I equate it to caramel a little bit. But
it's not like a cappuccino either. It's not like half coffee, half milk.
Right.
You know, it's not as creamy as that.
Yeah, I think, you know, when we start talking about some of these flavor notes and everything, and that's immediately like when you throw out words like cream, like people think like, oh, like heavy cream, like really really dense, really cloying. When you throw out chocolate, really sweet, really, there isn't like this cigar. What's really great about the cigar is it's not overly anything. Like it's not cloying, it's not hugely acrid, it's not huge, it's not, the spice component isn't like heavily burdened like with those Nicaraguan tobaccos that you were talking about earlier and other blends. This is just a really terrific experience in delicacy for me.
It's nuanced. Everything about this cigar I think is nuanced. It's not, nothing sticks out like a sharp knife. You know, everything is well balanced. I think this is a great example of what Davidoff is capable of doing when it comes to blending. Because sometimes I like to think that cigars that get good ratings, especially nowadays, you know, have to be cigars that like stick out, that are different. And this one doesn't stick out in regards to something that is different. For me, what sticks out about the cigar is how pleasant it is the whole way through.
No, it's garnering me a different appreciation. So you mentioned the word nuance, and so that's interesting because it's garnering a new appreciation for more of the traditional white label cigars, the Grand Cru, the signature I mentioned earlier, and the Aniversario, in particular, because I've always said those blends in particular are very nuanced. But like you said, the metaphor you used was the sharp knife, and it points in those cigars, there kind of is that sharp knife of something, right? It's the not to be too punny because the signature, but it is there is a signature in each of those blends that kind of like stick out. Like the way I've always characterized it is that, like, to me, the signature is has a little bit more woodiness. The Anniversary has a little bit more spice. The Grand Cru in my mind, captures all of that and adds a degree of citrus that I just think beautifully harmonizes. It's probably why the Grand Cru is my favorite of the three. But this cigar is definitely garnering a whole new appreciation for those blends, because this truly is, like you said, is very, very nuanced. There's nothing that just kind of cuts you to the core a little bit. I'm really enjoying it.
But it maintains a pretty high, a decent amount of intensity. Which is not normal about the white label. So this is able to provide you a lot more intensity and maintain those flavors still very even at that intensity. Sometimes when you get into cigars that are stronger, then you really get those things that stick out. And here, at this high level of intensity, you're still able to maintain a good even palate, which is something I appreciate a lot about this cigar.
Klaas, well, while we're kind of going into the last third here, we are going to go into a couple of different segments, and this is our famed One Must Go segment. You've participated in a few of these.
Yes, so I was getting nervous about this.
As always, it's brought to you by United Cigars, featuring La Giana Havana and distributors of Jose Dominguez, Bandolero, Garofalo, and the highly acclaimed Atabey and Byron lines. Smoke one today and start living united. Now, Klaas, you and I had an interesting discussion over social media a few months back. You posted on your Instagram story your top 10 favorite Davidoff cigars. And we kind of went back and forth on a couple of like, this cigar was on my list. I was interested that you wasn't on yours. And you're like, well, and I'm not necessarily getting into that, but I thought this would be a fun exercise. We're not going to go through all 10, but I thought this would be a fun exercise to go through just 3. And so I'm going to type these out real quick. I want you to just name 3 of your top 10 favorite Davidoff cigars for me real quick. The 3 that come to mind. And this is in no particular order. I'm not asking for favorites or asking you to rank, but just 3 that come to mind real quick. Go.
I think the top 3 in that list for me were 2006 limited edition Diadema for the Zeno anniversary, the 100th anniversary of Zeno. That was one of them. 2006. The other one was 2009 702 Selección 702. The first time 702 was launched as a limited edition. And then the last one, I had to put it in there because definitely is one of my top, even though I've only had it like 5 times, which is still a lot. The Oro Blanco, the $500 cigar that has 9 tobaccos in it. And those were, I think, my top 3 in my list. And do I really have to pick one?
Yeah, you know the name of the game, so you gotta pick one. Which one's got to go? And this isn't for real, people. Like, don't get freaked out. And you know, if our friends at Davidoff are listening, Klaas isn't going to go to you guys tomorrow morning and tell you all to get rid of one. This isn't what it's about. This is just a fun little exercise here.
To be honest, there was always a joke when I used to work in the factory and when my father was there. People would ask me, he's like, "So you've had this cigar?" And I would say, "No." Why not? He's like, "Well, because I only smoke the rejects of it." So why do you only smoke the rejects of it? Because it's so expensive. Somebody has to be smoking it and buying it. So I think I would have to say the Oro Blanco has to go. Yeah, I have emotional attachments for the 2006 and the 2009. Emotional attachments that I don't have with the Oro Blanco. Maybe because I've only had it so few times. But I think that one has to go. And yeah, Oro Blanco is definitely out of this world experience if you ever get to try one. Good 3-hour enjoyment time. Sit down for 3 hours, not think about anything else.
I was like, nothing.
Do nothing. Just sit there and just enjoy your cigar. Think about the cigar. Make the cigar take you places. But the other 2 are those unicorn cigars that we were talking about before. And I still have one 2006 Diadema left.
Oh wow, okay.
Yeah. The 2009 I have a box still.
Are you saving the 2006 for something special in particular, or just you're holding on to it because it was just that special to you?
I was enjoying one on every birthday, but now I only have one left, so I don't know what to do with it. But it will definitely be for something special.
Did you enjoy one on this last birthday?
Yes, I did.
Oh.
And that was supposed to be my last one, but then I got another one.
Okay.
So somebody else was nice enough to give me one.
Oh man, that's beautiful. So just so you're not on the ledge by yourself there, Klaas, I'm going to name top 3 of my top favorites as well. Okay. So I'm going to go with the Royal Robusto. We're going to talk about experiences here in just a second, but the Royal Robusto, in the Zodiac series, the year of the Rooster.
That was an interesting one.
I really enjoyed that. That's probably one of my most controversial picks when I talk to a lot of my friends who've had a lot of the Zodiac. You know, the snake was one that was really, probably hands down everybody's favorite. Yeah. The year of the horse had a lot of acclaim. Speaking of the 60s, right? We were talking about a minute ago with this past year, the Ox, that was a really unique experience as well. I really enjoyed that cigar. I bought a couple of pigs. One of my friends and colleagues at Michael's Salas, his son was born that year, so we enjoyed some of the pigs together. And that was a great experience too. But the Rooster for me is just one of the most unique and great experiences I've had with Davidoff. And then I got to go back to a cigar that I enjoy frequently, but I just absolutely love. I've talked about Grand Cru, and I should throw it on here just to make it a little bit fair, but about what I'd have to give up. But I'm going to do the Late Hour Churchill, and I'm going to pick something similar to you, Klaas, in a way, but my reasoning's a little bit different. I have to pick the Royal Robusto to go. Because like you said, it's a very expensive cigar. That's one of them. One reason, you know, why. But at the same time, I was having that moment that you talked about with the Oro Blanco with it. You know, I was gifted one, and at our store by one of our patrons. He didn't want to smoke them alone. That was his reasoning. He's like, I'm not enjoying this by myself.
Good.
Okay. All right. So Fantastic. So, I mean, but, and I was working too, which was interesting, but luckily it was a quiet night. And I just remember being so focused on that cigar and just, I mean, really, really enjoying it. And I absolutely loved it. But you know, I, I just don't know if I can, you know, experience that all the time. Like, I don't know. It's just, to me, it was just
But
too good. So,
well,
uh,
it's the one must go is an interesting idea because it's like you just said, the Royal Robusto is a cigar that you've had less. You've had it less times than the others, so you have more emotional attachments to the ones that you have enjoyed more often. You have different memories with them. You have different experiences with them that are memories that you don't want to get rid of. And maybe you don't have that memory with the Royal Robusto yet.
right.
So it might be easier to take it off the list.
So,
I don't have
yeah,
a memory. Yeah, I don't have a memory with the Oro Blanco where I'm like just having a blast with my friends or something, because I would never enjoy the Oro Blanco in that setting.
right.
So
Right.
all the other cigars I've enjoyed in very unique settings where I'm enjoying with friends, I'm sharing a moment, and I have very emotional attachments to them. So that's probably similar reasoning in that sense for us, for both of us.
Yeah, the other one was gifted to me too. It was gifted to me by you all when we went down for the tour at Davidoff. It was a wonderful gift that you gave us a lot of wonderful gifts that week. But that was one of the gifts that we received, and that was tremendous. I enjoyed that as well. I brought that home, and yeah, nobody was around, and I enjoyed that.
Exactly.
Um, but the it's interesting about to kind of go back to the year of the Zodiac, the Chinese New Year's and the Zodiac ones that y'all do and put together. What's been like one of your standouts? I won't ask for your favorite, but what's been one of your standouts that you really enjoyed? Does it go back to the snake for you, or is it one of the other ones?
Snake was on my list, I think.
It
Snake might
was
have
it
been on
was
my, yeah.
actually, now that I say that out loud, I remember.
Yeah, Snake was on my list. But if I have to say another one, it was the monkey. I really, really enjoyed the monkey. I think it
Okay.
was the perfect shape, the perfect vitola for me. I'm a horse. I was born in 1990, so I'm a horse. But the shape was above my ring gauge comfort level. So even though I own a box and I will never open it until God knows when, but I it's just a shape that I'm not enjoying as much. Rooster was up there for me, especially because the shape was just such a nice figurado shape. And those perfecto formats I always enjoy. I mean, you can talk about the 2006 Zeno 100th anniversary. That Diadema is a figurado format. I always enjoy those formats. It's an experience.
I I'm a big fan of the Nicaraguan Diadema. I really enjoyed the first time we did the show together. We did the 50th Diadema, and that was a wonderful tasting experience as well. Really enjoyed that cigar. That's definitely in my top 10. The 50th. I never had
Mhm.
any of the 2006, but I know that you and a lot of other people speak very reverently about it.
Mhm.
Um, the but there's just, I think I think that's one of my favorite things about Davidoff cigars in particular, and I can say this is, um, I've had wonderful experiences with cigars outside of Davidoff. I mean, that goes without saying, without question. But I can say about Davidoff cigars in general is that every single time I light up a Davidoff, and it doesn't matter which one it is, um, it it is an experience worth remembering, and it gives wonderful memories. There are times, like you said, you're smoking with friends, and that's a different type of memory. There's times where like with the Royal Robusto or the Oro Blanco, where you're smoking it and enjoying it alone, and that's its own special kind of memory too. But I think that's one of the things that I enjoy about these tastings every year, Klaas, is this is another memory that we're building upon.
Mhm.
It's kind of going into the vault, so to speak, um, which is why I love doing this with you every year. So,
Well, something that's really cool is that I can have a Davidoff cigar in these kinds of environments where I'm having fun. And maybe I have to touch up the cigar here or there, you know, because maybe I'm distracted or I'm having fun, you know, I'm talking too much, but the quality is there. So they rarely fail you, even when you're not paying attention to the cigar. And something that I don't like, or just that ruins your experience, is that every time you go back to your cigar, it turns off or you're having issues with it. And that's just a hassle you don't want to go through when you're having these nice experiences, these nice memories. So a cigar that is dependable, a cigar that will burn consistently, the flavors won't stick out to you in a harsh way or negative way. That just makes, it's just a plus to the experience. And that's what I love about Davidoff cigars.
You know, you mentioned about the touch-ups and stuff. You know, that's one of the, Davidoff is one of the very few companies. There's four in my mind. You know, other people can have other experiences, and that's fine. And this isn't me being critical of any other cigar brand. It really isn't. If it's intended mostly as a compliment for Davidoff and the other brands. They're one of the few ones, and I've smoked hundreds at this point. Hundreds of Davidoffs. And I've never had a performance or technical issue. Never had a plug. I've never, you know, even in times when, you know, on that trip, you know, there were less than opportune moments, especially considering I was using a Bic lighter, where I was not, you know, lighting the cigar in optimal conditions. And yet,
the cigar would catch up. The cigar would fix itself. You know,
it's crazy. And I remember I handed a you know, Mickey Peg is actually in the chat, and he was talking about one of his favorites of all time is the Aniversario, the number 2. And it's funny he mentioned that was a cigar I gave my brother, because he really likes he's in the more mild cigar flavor spectrum. That's where he really enjoys cigars the most. And he botched the lighting on it. It was my fault. I distracted him, but he was like, "Oh, darn it." And I said, "Hey, no, actually I want you to try something. Just go. Just let it go." And he's like, "Really?" And I said, "Yeah, just let it go." Cause he lit like half of it. Like literally it was like half the foot was on fire and the rest was just, I mean, it was like, it came off the shelf. And, and I'll be damned if that thing didn't catch up about an inch in. It was insane. It was just insane.
Yep.
It was just crazy.
And with those lighter cigars, it's a lot easier. But yes, we do a lot of those tests. We actually do tests of that. Like,
oh wow!
Somebody in the company that was very famous for doing this was Manuel Peralta. Peralta would do almost every day a test like this. He would light up his cigar bad on purpose to see, especially coming out right off the fermentation pile, the tobacco that were being tested. He would on purpose light the cigar wrong to see it would catch up, to see how the fermentation was going.
Oh,
so
wow.
This is something that we do.
Wow, that's I know you guys think of everything, but you guys literally do think of everything. That's crazy. As we're kind of getting into the final third of this cigar, I'm slowing it down a little bit here just because I'm enjoying the conversation. But thank you, Klaas. I appreciate that. I didn't want to leave you hanging out by yourself there on the One Must Go. So thank you for participating in it. And as always, our One Must Go is brought to you by United Cigars, featuring La Giana Havana and distributors of Jose Dominguez, Bandolero, Garofalo, and highly acclaimed Atabey and Byron lines. So smoke one today and start living united. Now, normally, Klaas, I'm gonna fall on the sword here. I messed up because I, frankly, and as you know, I was a little bit distracted. We were trying to get these cigars to me, and I'm so thankful to whoever sacrificed for the, I won't say the greater good, but for the good of the show. So I appreciate it very much. But normally, what I've been doing is a newer segment on this show, which is our charity segment. And I've typically asked my guests for a charity that they want to spotlight or highlight. I did not do that this week because, again, I was very distracted with trying to procure the cigars, and I had just gotten back from travel and everything like that. So that is entirely my fault. So I do apologize to you and to my audience for that. But if you are interested in giving to a cause, as my go-to cause in the past is, and we've done this, I highlighted this charity a couple of times, is Canines for Warriors, and I'll post the link later on. Canines for Warriors is a terrific cause, helping the veterans of the United States and also rescuing dogs at the same time. So it's a terrific cause, giving our heroes in this country a second reason for living as they've adjusted to civilian life. And it's a wonderful, wonderful organization, one that I'm very much impassioned about and very much believe in, and it's a great organization. So I do apologize, Klaas. I
Don't worry.
fell flat on that, but I know that there are some great causes that your family and Davidoff separately have supported over the years. So if one does come to mind that you would like to give me, I'd be more than happy to post it in the show notes later. So
I'll definitely let you know.
perfect. So as we kind of go into the last third here of the cigar, wanted to, and before I think we'll wrap up with the tasting notes, but I kind of wanted to talk about, this was already kind of planned, and then something happened today a little bit. So it kind of makes it even a little bit more relevant. So when I announced the show and we put in the title, this is the 177th take featuring Klaas Kelner of Kelner Tabak. Now, normally in years past, it's been Klaas Kelner of Davidoff Cigars. Kelner Tabak is a new organization that you are the founder and CEO of,
Yep.
Formed late last year. And
Yep.
Why don't you tell us a little bit about Kelner Tabak and the reason why you founded it?
Well, thanks for noting that. Coming up with a name wasn't that hard, but we're a Dutch heritage, and I wanted, of course, to be tobacco in the name somehow, but obviously coming with a family, Kelner Tabak, so tabak written in Dutch or German way. And basically, this is a company that will be able to grow in different ways. You never know. But as right now, one of the main things that this company does is continue to advise, consult, and currently Davidoff being the exclusive consultancy for us right now. So I do consulting for Davidoff mainly in marketing more than anything else. And it's maintaining a tie to Davidoff. When I left the United States, moving to Dominican Republic to be closer with my family, something I always wanted it was always a plan to move back, but be closer to the tobacco, the farm, be closer to the factory. And something that I know my family is really good at, something that I'm particularly good at is advising in different, in blending and in marketing and different ways to hit the market. Because I've had the opportunity, thank God, to travel all over the world, see all these retailers, see all these different aficionados that enjoy different types of cigars in different parts of the world. So I think it fits perfectly with what I know, with what my passion is. And there's other projects here and there outside of the tobacco world, but definitely the main thing is my consultancy with Davidoff. I'm very happy with what I'm doing. I get to still go on shows and talk about the wonderful cigars that Davidoff does. And that's pretty much it. You never know where it can go, but now being back home, it just felt right to become independent and go on my own.
So you mentioned that you were able to kind of reestablish the relationship with Davidoff and bring them on as a consultancy. Right now they are, and I think you mentioned this a moment ago, but right now they are the sole area or that you are consulting with, correct?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
And you mentioned the marketing and that's always kind of, that's, for the last few years, and you were kind of, brand ambassador was kind of the default title, but I think there was more to it than that.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you did everything, like you said. You were, you consulted on blends, you consulted in marketing. So, I mean, a lot really hasn't changed in that regard.
No.
But what's, as far as, as far as travel is concerned, and I know COVID obviously played a huge part in restrictions in that. Will you be traveling as much with this new role that you have, or will it mostly keep you at home close to the family like you designed it to be?
I think I will be traveling less. There are plans to send me to different places, depending if it requires it or it's important enough of an event. Um, but right now, I can't tell you how the role is going to change because especially with COVID and everything, so many things are virtual. And I mean, just this week, I was doing events virtually for Paraguay. Yeah, it's a new.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah. So Davidoff is gonna just started distributing in Paraguay, a new country. So I was doing training and seminars for Davidoff virtually for the stores and the distributor over there. So I'm definitely assisting a lot with South America currently, especially because of my tie and my ability to speak Spanish. So it's we don't know when traveling will begin, but definitely one of the big ideas was to move less, travel less. I mean, back in 2016, I was traveling over 200 days out of the year. So
Yeah.
I was a road warrior for a while. It's nice to sit back now and be able to consult from home and not have to be on a plane every single week.
Well, spend some more time with that beautiful daughter of yours for sure, and your wonderful
Yes.
wife too. It definitely
Yeah.
giving you that
Not
opportunity.
taking it for granted.
So I was going to say to the one of the other benefits too. I know you touched on this a show before, and gosh, it's escaping my memory. So you're fluent in Spanish. You're obviously fluent in English. What other languages do you speak? You speak two others, correct? Or
No, just French.
just French?
But
Okay,
there's still three.
still three. Okay,
There's still three languages, which is decent.
I,
But
two
it does
more
help a
than me.
lot.
So
But it does help a lot with the European market, especially also talking with a lot of people in the headquarters with Oettinger Davidoff. Because Switzerland being in between Germany, France, Italy, you get those three languages mixed up in there. So there are a lot of people in the corporate speak French, and I get to practice it a lot, quite often, quite honestly. So I don't lose it, which is important. Can't lose it.
do you dabble in German at all, or is that just
Yeah.
no, not at all?
No, I was put in Dutch classes when I was very, very young, but that never took off. Not a lot of people practice Dutch with. I do know some words and some phrases here and there, but I can't really have a full-on conversation with somebody.
Was Spanish your first language, or was English, or did you kind of learn it both?
Spanish.
Spanish was the first language. Okay.
Yeah, and then English came in around 6 years old. But I studied with American teachers. I studied in the United States, and I've worked in the US so long. English is almost like a mother tongue to me.
No, it is. So here's the interesting question. I always ask this of people who are bilingual, trilingual, or just linguistic in general. What language do you dream in?
English and Spanish both.
Oh, both. Wow.
And yeah,
Okay.
and I can switch back and forth without even thinking. The day I found out I was learning enough French was the day I started dreaming in French. I
Oh,
rarely dream in
nice.
French anymore, but the day I dreamt in French for the first time, I woke up very happy. I was like, okay, I think I'm getting it now.
That's awesome. No, I was given a really good compliment at this year's trade show, and it was over my pronunciation of a lot of things. And they're like, "Oh, so you speak Spanish?" I'm like, "Oh, absolutely not." I can read it. I can read it really well, and I can understand it. More so when I'm in the environment, like when we were in the Dominican a few years ago and people were speaking it, I understood it a lot better. If someone started speaking it to me now, it would take me a few moments to kind of catch up and everything. But no, I do not speak it at all. It's terrible. I
When
grew
when I
I grew up in a border town where Spanglish was probably the best. That was probably the most frequent language spoken, which is why I don't speak it, because I just know that I'm going to bring in English or use words in Spanish that aren't really words. And it's not a good look. So
It's
um,
never too old to learn. It's never too late to learn.
I
I know
know.
some people that like put tapes or under car as they drive to work and back, and in a matter of 2 3 years, they are fluent in that language.
I,
Vartan Safarian, for example, Vartan.
uh-huh.
Yep, Vartan, Arizona. He Ambassador Cigars. he learned Spanish by putting it in the car. And now he speaks to me in Spanish every time I talk to him.
Oh, that's beautiful. Yeah, I did that with when my wife and I went to Germany. That my wife is German. And when we went to Germany for the first time, I did that for about 3 months leading up to that trip. It was German tapes and stuff, and in the car, and I got around okay. I got about 7 sentences into a conversation, and luckily
Switch to English.
Yes, very very lucky that most Germans actually speak English, and they were very gracious that they could switch to English. So it was good. But so the elephant in the room that we're talking about, Klaas, was the article that was released by Cigar Journal this morning, which was entitled "The End of the Kelner Era." But not really. Like we talked about your new role with it, you're still very much tied into the company and everything. But were there any other components of that article that you wanted to talk about or share?
I mean, I think it's pretty straightforward. Davidoff had their comments, and you can go and check the article. And basically, my father is now retired, and he still grows tobacco for Davidoff, but he's retired from Davidoff. He is still 100% working, probably sometimes harder than I am, going to the farm. Yesterday, he was at the farm and came back like at 5 o'clock in the afternoon. And so at 75, he's not retired, and he still works for Pro Cigar, and he's still fighting on behalf of the industry at a government level, at an international level. And so, and then it talks a little bit about me, and it clearly states I'm still consulting for Davidoff. I'm not an employee of Davidoff, so I just consult for them now. I'm independent now. And then there is a last paragraph there that talks a little bit about Eladio Diaz. For whoever who wants to read it, they can go and read it, but he's consulting, he's advising as well. So there's still input from us, and we're still helping Davidoff. So it's not, you could say as an employee, yes, it's the end of the Kelner era, but we're still helping with tobacco and with advising.
Yeah, I think that I guess that title's a little misleading because, again, I mean, the foundation of Davidoff has always been the tobacco, and that's very, I mean, that was very clear from the tour of 2 years ago when y'all were employees of Davidoff. But that was the focus then, was talking about the tobacco, and you guys were farmers, and that's how you characterized yourself. You were like, I'm a farmer. That's my family are farmers, and we've grown tobacco for years. We were at Hikome. We spent a couple of days there, and that was one of your mother's farms. And we're smoking some of those tobaccos tonight in the Dominicana, which is wonderful to be able to be part of it. So I like you, I can't see your father fully retiring from tobacco.
He's just no longer tied to Davidoff in regards to managing or consulting or anything. He's 100% separate, and he is growing tobacco for them. But that's where really the title comes in. It's really more announcing formally now that my father is really no longer tied to Davidoff. But I'm still here consulting. So it's nice to be able to still talk about cigars that I grew up with, cigars that that I thoroughly enjoy and love. And this is still a company I would die for. So very happy to still be here.
So his work with Pro Cigar, and you said international efforts and industry efforts and everything to prolong. What was that? I know both of you all were privileged to attend PCA a couple weeks ago. Was that the capacity that your father was there at? Was because I know Pro Cigar was there. Was that why he was there as an ambassador for Pro Cigar? Yeah,
my father is president of Pro Cigar, so he was at PCA because of Pro Cigar. I was there just on my own. I wasn't gonna miss PCA, but we did get a lot of questions about that. But we love the industry. We'll never stop supporting the industry in any capacity that we can. And it was just nice to see you, hang out with everybody, enjoy some cigars. It's been a while, so it was my first trip after all this COVID thing started, and it was very nice. And I've been listening to all the shows that you guys have been putting on post PCA, all your commentaries, and they did well. and of course, always things to be better here and there. But I was very satisfied with the results, and
Mhm.
there's always improvement. But I'm in the same line as you guys in many of your commentaries, and it's really nice to see how everybody just got together again, and we're able to just be ourselves finally after so much time.
I think it was incredibly encouraging to, even though you guys aren't formally employed by Davidoff anymore, and Davidoff elected to not go to this year's PCA trade show, it was, it really showed your family's dedication to the industry, the fact that you were able to be there, and in the, in the ambassador role that you guys were, and your father's work with Pro Cigar is going to continue, and it's going to be great for the country of the Dominican Republic, because you know at its core, the Dominican Republic is one of three, if not the major cigar producing country in the world, and it's important. It's so tied into the fabric of your country, and so while the industry is incredibly important, it's not just that one component. There's another facet to that. It's these other countries, and your father's work at Pro Cigar will continue that legacy, which is just wonderful. Is
Of
that
course.
this is just for my own personal knowledge, Klaas, and you may not be aware, so I apologize for putting you on the spot. Is that a termed position? Like, is a new president elected every couple of years, or if you don't know, I don't. Again, I'm just
No, I know. I just laugh because my dad jokes that he's a dictator. He founded it, and then he's always so every couple of years they do have elections, but every single year they elect him again. Vice presidents have changed here and there, but my father, since the day he founded it, he is still the president. But there are 4 more elections every couple of years, and every year he wins unanimously.
If it ain't broke, don't fix it.
Exactly.
Yeah. Right. Well, as we're kind of wrapping up the cigar here, Klaas, I just wanted to kind of go over a couple of the tasting notes as we're finishing the cigar. That I think one of the unfortunate defining characteristics of a lot of cigars is when they start to get towards the last third and start to finish up. We were throwing around the word acrid before. They tend to become bitter and hot and everything, and that's something that you typically don't experience, or in my case don't really experience at all with Davidoff cigars, and this is proving consistent with that performance. I'm not getting anything hot, I'm not getting anything acrid. It's really maintaining that intensity that we talked about. It's building a little bit too. It's gotten a little bit more intense as we're wrapping up this cigar. Um, the sweetness has kind of changed. We talked about, for me, that middle we were talking about the cream. We were talking about, I defined it as caramel, and you said not quite not dark chocolate, but definitely not milk chocolate. I'm getting a little bit more, kind of, almost kind of like a date, fig, kind of fruit sweetness as well. That wood, that's kind of that what I defined as oak in that first kind of third is kind of carried through the cigar for a lot, and it's kind of becoming a little bit more pronounced. That wood's kind of coming back and more dominant. But also I'm getting those baking spices again from the beginning. So this is a really nice finish to the cigar. What kind of tasting notes do you get on the last third of this cigar?
So I'm very in line with you, but I do have to be honest with you. I did relight another cigar.
We got to chatting. We got to chatting.
Yeah, we got to chatting. But I can actually now make a perfect comparison between the end of that cigar and the start of this one, which is quite interesting. Very along the lines of what we were saying, where the sweetness changed, and you could almost say it's more a matted sweetness. It's not as floral. It's not as acidic. It's not as creamy. I thought the sweetness became more dried. So I feel like the palate became a little bit more drier, and the sweetness became more like those dried fruits that you were mentioning, more caramelly sweet, less I don't know, less smooth, you could say. Not in less smooth. That's not the word, but more dry. It's a different kind of sweetness.
It's not it's not as rich, right? It's not that.
It's more matted. It's more toned down, I think. Where this one, now that I'm relighting this cigar, right from the beginning, the sweetness just like jumped up again. So definitely the sweetness gets toned down. I think the back starts playing a lot more. Those spices really become the predominant part of that last third, and then that woodiness, that chocolate really hones in at the end, and I think becomes a bigger part of the experience towards the end.
So very early on, when we were talking about the cigar, you had said, this was a project you were involved in before the formation of Kelner Tabak, and so I know you can't comment obviously on future projects because you don't know yet. But like when you say you consult on a blend, and you mentioned the tasting panel a little bit ago, obviously you're part of that component. But what other facets did you consult on in this blend or in blends in the past? Like what does that even mean? Like what do you like? Do you go through some of the tobaccos? What do you do?
I think a big part of where my knowledge comes in is being able to look at a blend, being able to look at the tobaccos in it, and then being able to try my best to describe it in a way that it's marketable and it's being understood by the consumer. Not only, hey, this is good because this is this, but there's also special. And what are the things about each cigar that make it special? And what are the things that we should be communicating? Every cigar, there's a lot of tobaccos here and there that jump from one line to the other, but then being able to market it well. How are you going to talk about that this cigar is 2014? What's special about it being 2014? What are you going to communicate about this? What's special about the wrapper? What's special about one of the tobaccos inside? And being able to say it in a way that is understandable. And then, of course, all the marketing campaigns and all this other stuff. I'm lucky enough to get my eye on them and see if anything sticks out or if anything should be, I suggest something should be changed. But I'm not the only person. There's a ton of people in Davidoff that actually do this and look over all of the material. So it is a team effort to see what are the things that we really want to communicate, how we want to communicate it, and how we want to differentiate it from all the other lines, so they don't cannibalize each other, and they are able to stand on their own. Normally, the thing is, let's be honest, Davidoff makes a lot of great cigars, but what is it special about this cigar that you should go to this cigar, and what's different, and what's the moment that is different? That you should be enjoying the cigar. So I do play a big role in that. And also social media communication. I do get sent the cigars beforehand, normally years in advance. And I get to try some of those, and I get to consult with them. I get to say yes, no, or maybe you should try something else. Now, again, I'm not the only one. There's a lot of people in this tasting panel, and their opinions also get heard.
So you talked a little bit about, you kind of hinted at that a moment ago about how, you don't want to, Davidoff doesn't want to ever put something on the market that can, cannibalizes itself. And that's something that every brand goes through, right? Especially when they're in a innovative and innovation driven business that this is. And for a pretty nice stretch there for the last few years, Davidoff was doing this really big innovation piece. They came out with the Discovery series. There was the Nicaraguan, then there was the Yamasa and the Escurio and the Winston Churchill Late Hour. And then for the last couple of years, it's been a lot of really beautiful, like this one, limited editions. Now this one is a little bit different, like you said, because like instead of a 60,000 cigar run, this is more in the 300,000+ range. So it's going to be a little bit
like a line.
Yeah.
It's three shapes.
You said we should see allotments for the next couple of years, before it's finally sunsetted. Do you foresee Davidoff kind of going in this, again, using this analogy of a wave of things, right? Do you foresee Davidoff going into another wave where there's this launch of a lot of major innovation where things like, we can't even imagine, right? Like the Yamasa, the Nicaraguan, and things that happen again? Or do you think this will be the concentration for the foreseeable future, where they're really kind of just really diving into these beautiful limited editions that we've seen?
I think you're going to see a mix. I think you're going to see not only innovation, but something that is very important to Davidoff is being able to reinvigorate the white label line, reinvigorate the cigars that are already in existence, that have loyalty, that have consumers that have enjoyed them for many, many years and continue to enjoy these cigars. What is interesting with that kind of cigar is that you have the market already because you have this loyal consumer base, but it's very hard to grow the older lines because the older lines uh, they get overshadowed sometimes with what's new, with what's innovative.
Right.
So because what's new, it's what's hot, it's what's being communicated. So every company, and definitely Davidoff, should find a good balance between innovation and reinvigorating the older lines. That way, they don't lose that other the older lines. You run the risk of always bringing in what's new limited editions, new this, new that. That maybe somebody will jump to the new one, maybe because they like the flavor or their palate has evolved. And you don't want these iconic lines, these legendary lines that have been around for over 30 years to die out. So
Right.
there has to be a clear balance. And I think Davidoff did well by launching something and throwing it in the white label line, because it does bring some life back to the older lines, and it does make us talk and make us remember the Grand Cru, the Aniversario, the Signature, which are as important as they can be and top sellers in Davidoff.
Well, like I was saying earlier, I mean, what this cigar has done for me is kind of given me a whole new appreciation for those lines. Where I had said before that, we talked about how nuanced the cigar is, without that knife point, flavor that we were talking about. Just great consistent flavors all the way through, and nuanced and balanced and everything. That's, like I said, it's given me a whole new appreciation for the white label. But you guys did that again 2 years ago when we did the Elemental experiment with the 3 Discovery Series lines, the Escurio, the Amasa, and the Nicaraguan. That was kind of that was a great exercise in what y'all did, because those had not been out for that long. The Nicaraguan had been out the longest, but it kind of allowed us to go back again with that campaign that you guys launched. And I go back to that show often, Klaas, because I really enjoyed going through all 3. And then last year we did the 2 Churchills, and I was really excited to kind of go back to just a single cigar, like the way we started 4 years ago, so that we could kind of just dive into this. And I knew that we were going to be able to talk about other items, and really this conversation has kind of morphed into another beautiful conversation, like we always have, because we've kind of taken those previous experiences and brought them into this conversation, because they hold water. They hold water to this blend, and I think that's what Davidoff was trying to accomplish with this. Like you said, they're wanting to reintroduce something into the white label, and mission accomplished, right? Got me to reinvigorate my appreciation for those lines. I guess the last thing I'll mention before we kind of go into our curveball segment is we went through the blend component, and one of the thing, again, something that kind of jumps out in the cigar, which you see a lot of other blends from other companies, is there's typically at least 1, if not 2, if not 3, if not more, use of ligero, and ligero is lacking in this blend. It's visos and secos. which it kind of can place to that kind of nuanced mold and everything.
Mhm.
Um, when you're consulting on blends and everything, and like Ligero is introduced, it has its place. I understand that, but I mean, is there ever a time where you feel like Ligero is overly used? Like it doesn't necessarily fit that Davidoff mold, or do you feel like that even Davidoff can use Ligero like it has in some cases, and it
Mhm.
really shines? What are your thoughts on Ligero specifically?
Well, it depends what you want to accomplish, and it depends on who's the consumer you want to target. Because I think the Winston Churchill line is a perfect example. The first line, the original collection, with the Winston Churchill with the white band, that's a cigar that is virtually all seco, and then they follow it up with another line. That one has visus and it has higher primings. So when you're creating a line or you're creating a portfolio, you need to have lines that have ligero, some that have a little bit of everything, and then some that have more in the bottom. This is right down the middle. This is visus and seco, but it is still powerful enough. It's still intense enough to hit those higher notes in your palate, to hit that higher intensity. And I think that's something that Davidoff is really good at. You don't need to use ligero to produce a burst of flavor. And that's something that a lot of blenders should take into account. You can produce flavors by making complex blends, and the complex blends will produce flavor intensity, not strength. So ligero, I don't think for Davidoff is ever overused, but it has its place, and
Sure.
I do enjoy ligero because it, you can definitely bring out one tobacco or two by putting in one of those stronger positions of the leaf, one stronger primings. It's again, it depends on who you want to target and what the line is made for,
Sure.
because what Davidoff is really good at is creating a portfolio that everybody can have a good cigar in the Davidoff portfolio. It's not just strong cigars. It's not just soft cigars. There's everything for anybody.
So this is my last two questions, including our curveball segment. Our good mutual friend Eddie Guerra sent an interesting package not too long ago to a lot of us, and I took part in a challenge. I'll show the package here in a second. I took the Scorpion challenge,
Yeah.
ate the Scorpion, and smoked the newest release from Camacho with it. Not and it was. It was an interesting exercise. I liked the Scorpion. But did you take part in the Eat the Scorpion challenge?
No, sadly, no. They were going to send me one, and then we found out we couldn't ship food to another
Oh,
country. So
interesting.
I missed out on that. I really, really wanted to. I saw everybody's videos. I was following all of it, and I'm a foodie, and I'm never afraid to try something new. So I'm very sad I missed out. They definitely have to hold one for me.
It was a great exercise. Something incredibly unique, and something I never thought I would actually ever do. So like you, I'm a foodie too, and I was eager to do it and try it, and it was a great exercise, I thought, and and fun at the same time. Um, so that on a fun note, we'll end tonight's conversation with our curveball segment, and as always, our curveball segment is brought to you by Dunbarton Tobacco and Trust. Fastballs or curveballs? Doesn't matter. Since the company's inception, Steve Sock has been knocking them out of the park 6 consecutive years in the consensus top 3. Yep, I looked it up and I even got fact checked on it too. Um, so this goes into our last question for the night here, Klaas. So for as long as you've been in the industry, you've either been an employee of Davidoff, now you're a consultant for them. Davidoff is what you know, what you breathe, what you enjoy. But Davidoff is much more than the Elemental series that we were talking about tonight, the white label series that we were talking about. There's several other brands like Camacho, for example, Avo, Cusano, Griffins, and other brands that Davidoff has made for other folks throughout the years and everything. So my curveball question is this, because I rarely ever see it. Are there any other cigars that Davidoff makes that you enjoy? So kind of playing off our one must go, are there any Avos or Camachos or anything that you like that you enjoy?
Oh, let's talk about Avo first. Uh, I do have to say a limited edition because this is very much in line. In 2009, there was a lot of home runs. So in 2009, Avo had the Avo Compañero, and that one, they hit it out of the park with that one. And I had a couple left here and there, but no more. So if I was talking to somebody that had some, I was like, please, if you can, I'll trade you 2-1, 3-1, whatever you want. Because Avo Compañero was up there for me. But out of the regular line from Avo, I really, really enjoy the Domain 50.
Oh my gosh, that's my cigar. I love that. Oh, I love that cigar. I love that blend. It's tremendous.
A good one.
Yes.
It's a good one. And that, again, but going back to Perfecto shapes,
Mm-hmm.
it's a cigar predominantly made with Visus. I love Visus and blends, and when there's a lot of Visus and blends, it's right down the middle. It's not overpowering. It's not too soft. So Domain hits it right there in that spot, kind of like this one.
Oh, I love that cigar. Oh
Yeah.
gosh, that Avo is my jam, man. I love it. I really enjoy it. So from Camacho. Now Camacho's a little bit newer to the Davidoff fold. It's been around for a few years now. But have you partaked in any Camachos that you really enjoy?
You know,
Because they're a little bit out of the Davidoff wheelhouse,
yeah,
right?
they're very, very different. Different factory, different tobaccos. Different blender, different everything. But you remember when Camacho was doing the tours with the truck and the bikes and everything?
Yeah.
I got to go to so many of those events. They were always a blast. But I kind of fell in love with the Avo Ecuador, Camacho Ecuador,
Mm-hmm.
Camacho Ecuador, and then coming from the Dominican Republic, I did get to try a lot of this, especially when we were trying the barrels and everything. The American barrel age, that one, it's always one I can enjoy, which is interesting because it is a Camacho. We aimed at Camacho flavors, but it's made in Dominican Republic.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe not going too far from what I already know. And that being able to test the bourbon barrels and everything, that was a lot of fun. So I do have a little bit of an emotional attachment to that one.
Oh, they're two great cigars. I love the Ecuador. That's probably my favorite Camacho of the regular lines. And then the American Barrel Age was good. I enjoyed it. When the Nicaraguan Barrel Age came out, the rum barrels. I enjoyed that one. I thought I liked it more, and I kept going back to the American Barrel, and I was like, no, I really like the American Barrel more.
Something like that happened to me. I tried to like the rum barrel one like as much as the bourbon because I have to try. Even the marketing was like a competition. Which one do you like more?
Yeah, exactly.
And it was a new one, so I kept trying, but I always kept going back to the bourbon barrel. I'm a fan of bourbon. I don't know if that had anything to do with it. Maybe it's my psyche. But I did always go back to the bourbon barrel.
That's wonderful. All righty. Well, Klaas, I really cannot thank you enough. Happy Father's Day to you. Your first Father's Day.
It's 12:40 here now. No, I don't want to rub it in. I missed the last 2 hours of Father's Day for you, but this will be a tradition, and I always. I'm willing to jump on. It doesn't matter if it's my birthday or anything. I always have a blast talking to you.
Well, thank you, Klaas. It means the world to me, and thank you so much. And I appreciate all the time. I appreciate this. The last 4 years, this has become a wonderful tradition. I love it. It's different from my normal conversations, and I like it for that reason. We get to dive into what we both love, and which is tobacco. And we get to enjoy some great cigars and some great conversation. And today we get to celebrate the end of Father's Day for you, your first Father's Day. And I'm truly indebted to you for it always, for your time and your friendship. It means the world to me. It really does. So thank you.
Yeah.
Well, for everyone out there as well, I appreciate the audience for tuning in, for staying in. We appreciate this this wonderful exercise. Go out and get if it was hard for me to get these, as Klaas mentioned, he had to wrangle some people and to get these out to me, and I truly do appreciate those as well. But a new allotment should be shipping in coming weeks, so definitely go out to your local white label account and grab some Davidoff Dominicana. The 2014 band will be on the foot. It'll be easy. Beautiful pigtail band cap. We didn't even talk about that. Great presentation on that as well. Something also unique to Davidoff cigars. It was a great experiment that we had tonight. Great conversation, great tasting. It was a fantastic experience. So thank you for all your tunings in. We appreciate all those likes, comments, and shares. You can tune into our YouTube page as always, ELOSOFUMAR. Don't forget to download, subscribe, and review if you are listening to this later on podcasts, wherever you listen to podcasts, whether that be on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Play, Podbean, or wherever you listen to podcasts. Again, be sure you download, subscribe, and review. If you already are a subscriber, please do me a favor, unsubscribe, but please don't forget to resubscribe. That really helps my numbers so that I can keep bringing Klaas back every single year so we can keep doing these experiments. This has been another wonderful edition of this great tradition that we have started here 4 years ago. This is our fourth one, and this was our 177th take. Klaas dismissed, everybody.
Thank you so much.
Have a great one, everyone. Bear Duplessis here at the Alec Bradley Lone Star Studios of Euless, Texas. We'll see you next time.